Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Being Spiritual with me, your host, Ashley Robinson, live this evening from Women and Spiritualist Church with my circle leader, Mary Dixie. Hiya, Mary.
Hello, Ash.
Thanks for joining us. And beaming from across the Atlantic is my our other circle leader, Christine Woodham, joining us from Spain. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Ashley and Mary.
Good to have you here, and great to have you folks back with us this evening. If you are joining us for the first time, a special warm welcome to you. Do let us know perhaps where you're watching the show from. It's always great to see how many different corners of the world we reach by this show. This is a spiritualist philosophy show, so we're going to be talking today about spiritualism, spirituality, about what makes us spiritualist. And in particular this evening, we're going to talk about spiritualist development. We're going to talk a little bit about circles. I've often had Mary and Christine in the virtual audience. I make reference to them almost every week. I talk about some of the principles that have helped me with my education. And tonight we're going to talk all about learning and development, about that opportunity, that investment that we all make, that spiritual advancement and those steps we take forward. And we're here to take your questions. You'll be able to ask us some questions about how to get started, or how to stop, how to continue, how to take that next step. So welcome tonight, folks, to Being Spiritual. And as I say, tonight's all about learning and development. We're going to do a couple of hellos and welcomes. So if you are coming back to watch the show again, thanks for coming back. Do say hi on the live chat on YouTube or on Facebook. And folks, please do give us the thumbs up, show us your love through the icons on Facebook and YouTube, and please do consider sharing this stream. Share it to your Facebook friends across your wall, or on YouTube you can click on the right forward arrow, you can tag your friends, you can put it out across your social media channels. And this community we have with Spiritual Psychic TV, it is all about doing things for you, for the benefit of you and involving you. This is an interactive show. We really look forward to having your questions, particularly your difficult questions. It makes me think about my own sort of spirituality and what makes me spiritual this evening. So we're going to take a couple of comments now. I'm going to look and do some hellos and welcomes. Damien Parks joins us from Facebook. Hiya, Damien. Di Redmond from Coventry. Lovely Leslie Moulton. Good evening to you, Leslie. Hiya. Kaylee, saying hello to Nan and Mary. Yeah. Lovely to see you on. Hiya, Kaylee. Welcome, welcome to you. And Lisa Wilkinson. Hiya. Christine Roberto. Hiya, Christine. Welcome back. Claire Colbeck.
Hi, Claire.
Yeah, saying hello, Mary.
Yeah.
And Kim. I mean, you might recognise Kim, Christine. Saying hello, Richard, Ashley, Mum. It's a family affair tonight. Sue Chadwick joins us from Facebook as well. Wendy Gawley says hi to everybody. Leonardis. Hey, Lynn. Lovely Terry Wall, thanks to all you do behind the scenes, Terry, keeping SBTV admin going, and stay sure, equally, all your energy, Alison, everyone that puts work into this. Ta-da, oi oi lovers from Kimbo. And Jim, hiya Jim, good evening, mate. Jeanette Turner, not even joins us. Good evening, Jeanette. Dawn Taylor, hi Mum, Emma McLeod, Emma McDonald even. Good evening, Jim from Julie. It's like the old posts in the Wild West. Dawn Taylor's watching from Canvey Island. Hiya Dawn, welcome this evening. Phil Shaw, that's a familiar name. Hiya Phil. Kaylee Dagnett says hi to everybody. Hiya Kaylee. Chris and Dave Schutz from Cyprus. Hello, the amazing Schutz family. Zenel from South Africa. Hiya there. Lorraine Chartland, good evening. Hi from Croydon. Says hi to Mary as well.
Yeah.
A few familiar names. Great to see new friends and existing friends coming back. Sylvia Freeston, good evening to you. Looking forward to the show. Thanks, Sylvia. Good to have you here. We'll do a couple more folks, and then we'll get on the show. Sally Worker. Hey, Sally. Trish Woods. All right, Trish. Lorraine. First time here. Welcome, Lorraine. So we're chatting spiritualist philosophy tonight, and all about spiritualist development and circles. One or two more. Okay, I think we may have got round to everybody now. Great to have you all here. So we're chatting about spiritualist development, and for me, it's an important. Oh, Kirsty, hiya, Kirsty. For me, it all started here in this building at Wimbledon Spiritualist Church. It's great to be back here tonight, broadcasting the show, because many of you that are coming back to the show will know that I consider myself blessed to have been brought up and born into spiritualism. My mum and dad, Ray and Jackie Robinson, are both ministers of religion within spiritualism, and my dad started coming here as a young lad, I think 10 or 11 years old. And it was an important part of my family. The regularity of coming to the church, Sundays and Tuesday nights were very much part of my childhood. And of course, growing up with that belief that life continued after that change we call death. Watching my grandfather, who had formed an organisation the year I was born, Life After Death Promotions, always talking about life after death. Seeing all the energy of the church committee that went into keeping the doors open, seeing posters going up, talking and challenging, is there life after death? Come inside and find out. Learning about some of those people that my grandfather was friends with, Gordon Higginson, Doris Stokes, and all the books that she had written. I was blessed to get my spirit name from Doris Stokes. So this people within spiritualism talk about spiritualism being more than a religion, being a way of living your life. And for me, therefore, growing up knowing that our friends from heaven, our loved ones, could pass on messages, it was something I saw regularly. It just seemed like second nature. But what became a bit overwhelming at times was the fact that what I was seeing with my mind's eye, and sometimes with my physical eyes, wasn't what always everyone else was seeing. And I remember after a really busy evening one night at church, I was probably maybe 7 or 8 years old, and after everyone that was a human being had left the church, I'd gone in to turn off the lights for my parents, and I could see the church packed with what I would now describe as our spirit friends and loved ones. Hiya, Joanne. And it was an intimidating thing for me because it all of a sudden became very noisy, and I'd never felt everything in one go, and it was an overwhelming sort of thing for my emotions. And I remember sitting down with my mum and dad, and my first bit of training was really the aspect of closure, the aspect of knowing I was safe, that there was certainly nothing here that was going to help me. These were just people that wanted to say hello. And I remember going through just a very, very little meditation to close my mind's eye with my mum. And over the years, spirits presented themselves in different ways. I remember when I was learning about Romans at school, that one night on a Friday night after I think I'd been to Cubs or Scouts, my dad had let me watch a bit of telly on my own, and I saw someone claiming to be the personality of a Roman soldier in our living room, and it was an incredible thing to learn about them. And then this person said they had to go back to the church because that was what they were there to protect. Now they were in heaven. I remember going up to my dad and said, "Dad, there's this Roman soldier in the living room." So for me, all of the formality of my training as a youngster was all about switching off. It was all about closing. Nothing ever seemed terrifying, but it was overwhelming, certainly again as a teenager. And I used to say to my mum and dad that obviously I had an absolute belief in life after death, but please don't be offended, mum and dad, if I don't follow in your steps. My sister and I would talk about my dad chasing ghosts through people's walls and getting out of people's houses. But I said, Dad, it won't be for me. I won't be doing mediumship from the platform. Certainly won't be talking to people about spiritualism. And I can't ever see myself being a minister, says the bloke that recently started their formal training to become a minister. But things started to change for me and my interests changed. And I'm going to introduce Christine first to talk a little bit about meeting my dad and the fact that Christine had an opportunity of a circle at Hatbridge Church. and how as a young 18-year-old, I had my sort of experience of coming in. And I also will then bring in Mary and talk about the circle and the leadership required in that, because I've always felt that you can't make leaders. It's the followers. You know, it's us followers that choose leaders. And of course, if you choose to follow someone, if you choose to listen, then they are de facto leaders. But of course, you want someone that you can trust, someone that's going to inspire you. And I've been very blessed to share this evening with two great friends and leaders within spiritualism. And I like to believe that Jill Hay, my other circle leader, is influencing us from the spirit world today. So, Christine, you've known my dad a long time. You worked with him at the Greater World.
Okay.
Yeah. Perhaps just tell us, tell everyone at home a little bit about yourself and your experience in circles, and maybe that sort of circle at Hatbridge that I was part of.
And then the most difficult thing I found was to actually calm the mind so that I could meditate, because that is an important thing, to be able to still your mind. It's not easy. Some people never learn to do it properly, and you should have this in your training. Training is very, very important, and it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, you can do the basics, but you really need the training to be kept safe. Always start your circle evening with a prayer, and you do have a guide that stands to guard you all. And your circle leader, she should be able to see anybody that's communicating with you, which she can link in so that she knows that you're getting the right responses, and again, keeping you safe. Safety is the most important thing. I have dealt with cases when I was at the Greater World where people had gone to circles where the circle leader was not trained, and because they can see and they can give messages, they think they know it all and know nothing. And one or two people that came to us for help were in a terrible state with spirits that weren't quite as they should be, and they were causing their lives to be taken over and disrupted. And it takes a lot of work to actually take that away. So it's very important to go to somebody that you know is trained and that you know you're going to be totally safe with, that they are going to watch over you. And it's a lovely experience. I was telling Ashley the other week that while I was sitting in circle myself, one week I had somebody try to jump into me, and I just said, out. And I spoke to my circle leader afterwards, Ivy, and she said that shouldn't be allowed to happen. Well, the following week, I had not thought about it during the week, they actually managed to get in. It wasn't just a bump and out, it was in. And I had to be very firm. And I had only been sitting in circle maybe about a year, and had to really be strong and say, no, I don't want you doing this to me, it's not nice. And they never did it again. But these are the things you have to be careful of. So it is very important to have somebody that you know you've been recommended to as a good teacher. Go to the church if you need. How I got into spiritualism, I wanted to go back to church, but I didn't want to go to Orthodox church. And I saw an article in our local freebie paper. So I rang Ivy and I said, can anybody come along? She said yes, service times. And it was about another 6-7 weeks. And I was working in the garden, doing my garden as I did. And I suddenly thought, right, today's the day. Came in and had a shower and went. And it was just like coming home. So if you've got a spiritualist church somewhere near to you, please go along. You will be made most welcome. And you can find out all the good mediums that do circles or the church circles. And you can join there. But you've got to think of safety. Safety is the most important thing, in my opinion, because you have to know that you are safe. Whatever you're doing, you're safe. And I think that should give them a few things to think about, shouldn't it? Yes. Indeed. Mm.
The importance of making sure that not only does the student and the circle leader work, but how the harmony of the group is also important.
Well, I started in circle myself back in 1984, and you get varying circle leaders, and the way that they teach is differently. The first one I had was a lovely man very tiny man, but very unassuming. And I felt that although he unfortunately had to leave because of his work schedules changed, but in the few weeks that he was the circle leader, I feel like I learnt a lot to just empty your mind of everything that was there before you started really to try and work in the circle. And that is something that some people seem to find very hard to do, but it shouldn't be. They need to practice it more. And as soon as they sit down in circle, really empty their mind of everything that's been going on through the day so that they can then relax in the circle. There are some people that come to circles that, not being disrespectful to them, but they think they know it all because they've been giving readings to people virtually all their lives, but they don't know really how to do proper presentation and how to put things over to others. And some don't stay long in the circle because they already think they know everything. I work already, and why should I sit in a circle? I can do it. But you need to have discipline. You need to be able to present it. And if you work on a platform, you need to really connect with those that you're actually speaking to. And there's another thing as well that a lot of people don't really understand, that sometimes they're being given something only because they are actually moving and not thinking, oh, okay, then I'm being given this because this is not how I move. This is not how I normally speak, how I move my head, whatever it may be. And that's something that those that might have been giving messages from being a very young person haven't developed that. So they actually need to sit in a circle to be able to do that.
I mean, it's a really good point you make about the gift. You know, we've mentioned on the show before that the ability to work with spirit is open to everybody.
Yes.
But actually, what you were talking about there is understanding that with the use of that gift becomes a responsibility, and a discipline, some standards in how to deliver. I mean, one of the first questions I remember you saying over and over again in circle was, once we had information, is who is the communicator? Who is telling you this thing? It's great to be able to get all this stuff as a medium, but you know, I remember you as a leader saying, you know, you need to find out who it's coming from. If it's good information and it appears to be received within the circle, where is it coming from? And it's that sort of safe space within the circle where the leader can almost coordinate the message, and make sure that you develop that point of attunement with your guides. I think it's a really important thing, and of course, good confirmation, validating where that information sort of comes from. And I know we often get questions on the show, and people say that they get X, Y, and Z, or we get requests, you know, for people to send them healing because it becomes a bit sort of scary and overwhelming. But I think that the thing that I struggled with the most at the beginning, which I still struggle with now, is what you said: clearing your mind. Get rid of that clutter. Christine, I remember one of the nights at Hatbridge, really hot. We went and sat out in the garden at the church, and it was one of the best meditations I'd ever had, because I suddenly found that, you know, I'm a big fat bloke. I found a chair which was a bit bigger. I could sit a bit more comfortable. The temperature was a bit right, and I couldn't understand why. And it was because I just felt a bit more at ease.
Most definitely.
It's important to be comfortable, and that safety, that trust you both spoke about.
I actually recall, what you having said that, I recall that one occasion the heating had broken down and we were freezing cold. So I thought, okay, so we did a meditation. We went off to a tropical island and we were lovely and warm. So that, and everyone came back and said, oh, it's cold here, but we were warm.
Yeah. One of the things that'd be interesting to get your opinions on, that I don't really see apart from that group guided meditation, is the idea where the circle all go off on the same sort of journey together, led by the collective consciousness of the circle leader. You know, I found just clearing the mind's eye and getting that blank canvas ready to receive messages was hard, but going on little guided meditations where we're starting to perhaps meet our guides, and I did both of that with both of you. Christine, perhaps you first, and then Mary, take us through. You know, when you've got a group of people and you're trying to take the group together in some way, recognizing we're all going at different speeds and different standards. As a circle leader, how is it you keep everyone attuned as that collective consciousness on a guided meditation?
It's not always easy, actually, but I've always been very fortunate. The people that I've had working with me are all seem to be in attunement with each other after meeting each other and getting to know each other. And it doesn't take all that long for the situation to get to that stage. And then you can do a meditation. And most people can follow a meditation if you're cautious, you know, and don't hurry it. It's, again, the circle leader relies on her guides because they give her whatever meditation she gets, and they usually give it at a speed that everybody can keep up with, which is a good thing. But meditations don't have to be long and drawn out. They can be short. If I meditate on my own here, I can go off for hours, but of course you can't do that in circle because we have to think about time. So, you know, you have to sort of keep it short and sweet, shall we say, but not too short. But I've always found that once you've done that, they're all ready to sit quietly and listen and tune into their own guides, which is what we need them to do. And it is to get the mind attuned in with the meditation. They usually give you something that will lead on to whatever comes out of their answers or their questions or the messages that they have for people or one another. We used to, when I was sitting in circle myself, we used to choose one of these sitters a week, and she would give a little message to everybody, which gets them into that response, you know, and picking someone. And not always easy. I remember that we were very fortunate. We had Hilary with us, and she was a psychic artist. Now, she had arthritis very badly in her hands, their fingers. But as soon as she did the meditation, she could pick up these little tiny thin chalks, and her fingers were free, and she did some beautiful, I've got some beautiful pictures of people that she's given messages from. That was her way of giving messages. And they were people that came from my childhood. There was one, and don't take this the wrong way, this man had taken his own life. Well, he was a neighbour of ours when I was about 15, 16. And but I recognised him. I was able to recognise him. But as soon as she stopped drawing, the arthritis came back. So it's amazing what the mind can do. And in a meditative, can't say the word now, meditative state, yeah. You know, you can change. But it's very interesting, but you've got to get them to that stage where they are that relaxed that they can work in their own way. And it comes slowly with some people, and it comes faster with others. I can remember you, actually, it came in and we'd have to stop you. He'd start giving messages, and it was messages this and messages that. So we'd say, yes, give somebody else a chance. But you were so good at it, and it comes from being within the movement for so long. It was second nature to you, really. But your messages were always so very good. But I hope that's given people a little insight.
Good.
Now
Yeah,
I've knocked everything down.
Trouble with you.
You're upside down now. Hang on,
yeah.
hang on. Let me just pick the prop up.
Yeah, definitely. I think learning to crawl and to walk before you run, really important.
Oh,
yeah, Mary, I always struggled to follow everyone on the group meditations when I sat with you, but you always found something that showed it was all still part of that.
Oh yes, absolutely. In the circle that I've at the moment, I found that since you remember Robin, and Chris, you remember Robin.
Yes,
and,
I do.
He comes in quite often and leads them all off on a journey. And some of them never met him, and some of them did, but they seem to recognise him when they go into meditation, and they follow him. Now, he takes them all on their own journey, and they don't go they might go slightly off, but they're still following him. And what they find amazing is he is in so many pieces in a way, because he takes each one on their journey.
Yeah.
And
Together but separate.
yes, absolutely.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
No, that's a good question, a good point. Now, Wendy's come up with a couple of questions. There's two from Wendy Gawley. I'll get Christine, you to answer one, and Mary to answer the second. But Mary, you were still talking. So Wendy's asked a question about visualization. So during meditation, she's saying, do you see things vividly, or is it a sense of what it looks like? She's never met anyone before she could ask. So I'll let you answer that, and then perhaps I'll get a bit of the context, and then Christine, I'll give you the other question.
Okay.
It's as though you're actually there physically. I've always found that you see things, but also it is vivid because the colours are what I call true colour. Our colour, the colours that we have, that we wear, that we see, are marred by the dross of earth. So when you go on the meditation, you see everything in true spirit colour, and it is so vivid you cannot fully describe it, because it's, as I said, it's marred by the dross of earth. So if you can imagine taking out all the dullness of a colour and seeing it as it truly is, then that's what it is. So it is vivid, yes, Wendy, it is.
And we did a show a couple of, I think possibly 2 weeks ago, when we were talking about what's within the mind's eye and the difference between your own sort of thoughts and feelings. And just adding really to what Mary said, that for me it was quite hard, and I think that I probably asked both Christine and Mary, what is the difference? Am I just making this stuff up? And of course, when it makes sense to other people, it's good confirmation you're not making it up. But I'd say, take a memory as an example. If you try and remember what you were wearing this time last week, your mind will take you on a journey to remember that. But if I say, what will you like to wear next week? You're starting to use a different type of energy. You're starting to use your imagination, your creativity. And then if I say, what is your guide wearing? Well, I'm not asking you to use your imagination. I'm not asking to use your memory. Those colours and that vividness will be ever so slightly different. So no, thanks, Mary. It was a good question. And Christine, then you can take Wendy's other question. Was we gave some advice about what to look out for, and what to be sort of cautious of. But Wendy's question was, what else should you watch out for when joining a circle?
Well, I feel that you've got to feel confident in the person that you're sitting with, or the group that you're sitting with. If you get somebody that is negative and that you're picking that up, it's not going to help you. So there has to be that more like a family feeling. I don't like open circles because you never know who's going to come into that. Here in Spain, at one of the foundations here, they have an open circle on a Thursday night. And we used to have one man came in and the energy would drop as soon as he walked in. And they can disrupt the whole thing. So you've got to have that family-friendly feeling. That's why it's important for the circle leader to meet in each individual before they actually join the circle, or perhaps have one evening and see if you gel, if they gel with you and you gel with them, because it's so important that you feel comfortable and at ease with everybody. It's not just one person. You have to feel, say there's 12 people in your circle, say, for instance, and you have to feel at ease with all of those. And if somebody makes you feel uncomfortable, then perhaps it's not right. But it's not easy. You've got to be cautious in that respect, I think. And I agree with Mary, the colours are absolutely wonderful when you're on a meditation, because she's right, the dross from earth, the dust and that we impart here, it changes everything from its brilliance. So I'm with you there, Mary. Most definitely.
The dynamics of the circle, I think, are quite important. You spoke about circles that you were members of. Certainly, the circles that I were of, you certainly develop relationships in a different way. And joining at 18, I mean, I'm going to be 40 in September, but the way that I've matured and grown. I think we dedicated an entire show to what does love mean on this platform. And as a spiritualist, we talk about unconditional love, we talk about service, but when you start to experience unconditional love in different ways, that's not in a relationship of parent to child, or husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, when the love is just unconditional coming from another person, and I think you start to get that within a circle. It is incredibly powerful. It's also can be a little bit confusing, and although I never had it in the circles I was sat in, I certainly spoke to people over the years about people becoming confused. Is that love also part of some lust, or is there a physical attraction that's now backed up by some of that love? So I know that the circle leader, one of the jobs they're having is almost like those school rules, isn't it? It's making sure that everything stays appropriate, but also for people to be cautious about those relationships, understanding how new relationships work. And while I've seen that, the happy extreme of people perhaps falling in love with each other, there's also been that when someone new has joined, how that hasn't been well received by the rest of the group. How that can cause, a destructive sort of effect when people just thought, do you know what, I've been sitting in the same chair or the same seat for so many weeks. And as you just said about with the open circle and the man joining there, actually people aren't happy with it. So as a circle leader, you've got to watch out for good energy, bad energy, positive, batteries and disruptions.
Definitely.
Most definitely. It's not
Kim,
easy.
Kim just said she sees colour and listens to the guidance, but no items. Maybe it's calming my mind. Sam Morgan also said, why are some mediums negative with you if you're developing your spiritual path? That's a good question, Sam. And first of all, I'm sorry that you have had sort of negative experience. I'm going to get Christine and Mary to give a couple of sort of thoughts on this. If you feel happy sharing any more, Sam, then please do, to give us a bit more context. But perhaps it goes back to opinions. Now, we're all regulated by some sort of standards, often from culture. Mary and Christine would have had formal educations, informal educations, as well as associations with different organisations. We mentioned Greater World, Christian Spiritualist Association, United Spiritualists, something that I'm sort of quite proud of now. And each of them have a beat and a drum which you try to follow, and you're marching to the beat of that drum. Most of them are within working for light and for love, but they all have a slightly different feeling. And of course, circle leaders get to the point that when they're teaching, everything that they teach is what they believe to be the right way of doing things in the sort of that sort of standard. So perhaps it's more about the fact that even though we are regulated to a certain extent, there's so many different flavors of spiritualism, so many different experiences, so many different qualifications. Someone could be a circle leader after 5 minutes in spiritualism, after 50 years in spiritualism, but perhaps it's all about that finding the right group. But Mary, any thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I was reading Sam's question there, but why are some mediums negative with you? Don't quite understand what she's getting at, really, because is it that she's gone to join a circle and she's not really connected with them?
So if you want to give us any more context, Sam do, but I think my thoughts there were perhaps that negativity is just a difference of opinion, and it's about you like the carousel of life, moving round, getting on the next horse until you find something which is positive, which is the right connection.
Definitely.
Okay. Okay, happy for the next question, Richard. And do keep your questions coming, folks. Anything on spiritualism. You've got free spiritualists with different backgrounds and walks of life now, so you can put anything spiritualist to us this evening, but of course anything about learning development on topic tonight's very welcome. Julie Caswell's just put in a question. Peckham's was talking about heaven being a posh word for the spirit world. Yeah, absolutely, it's a label, Peachams. And I think that label has to be personal and private to each person. So Julie's question was, I went to an open circle many years ago, had a very bad experience. It taught me a lot. I've brought sessions on a spirit box to an end when I've known the blend of energies were not right. So that's a good point, Julie, and yeah, it shows your discipline as a leader when we've used those psychic tools. So Christine, have you had that sort of situation? You spoke about someone with a negative energy. So it's on your shoulders, is it, that responsibility to
Well,
stop?
it is really. Yes, it is. Really, it's going back to that other question as well. I can't understand a circle leader, being negative with somebody coming in, unless my feelings on that would be that she may have come in being a little bit of a bossy boot. I know this and I know that, and it not fitting that way.
That's a hypothetical, Sam. Christine wasn't saying you were the bossy boot.
No. Yes, yeah. I'm sorry. No, I didn't mean that. But you know what I mean? Somebody coming in with that attitude, I know it all. And so they've really, because they haven't actually come to learn anything from you because they think they know it all. So, it's, that would be my take on that one. Well, I think, again, open circles I don't like. I really don't like. You never know who's coming in off the street or what energies they're bringing. Whereas if you're in a set circle, you know that you all are united. Let's put it that way. But there are some places where they perhaps only have an open circle, so you go.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a really good thing at all.
Because I suppose it can be challenging for people if they haven't been able to join a circle. They're looking for that right circle of where do they sort of start. And I suppose there are open platform sort of sessions.
Yes,
as well. But
they're quite good, aren't they?
Circle before you do an open platform, Mary?
I don't think so. No, I came here to open platform years ago, and I hadn't at the time done any platform work, and I did get the chance to come up and I read something out of, I think it was a Zodiac book, and I felt as though standing on the platform, suddenly it was as though there was a great whoosh of power into my back and my voice just boomed, because your dad stood at the end of the church and he was quite astounded because my voice boomed. But that was because they wanted me to do that. But it was several years later after that I ever did any platform work. But some people will rather go to an open platform than go to a circle. A circle frightens them. But going back to what you said, Christine, about open circles, I don't like them. Ted and I used to come to Bob Brunson's open circle. Most of the time it was the same people, but I do remember on one particular occasion there were a group of 3 people that came in and you could feel the energy from them wasn't good. And yeah. I think if I remember rightly, we finished a bit earlier that night.
Yes.
But Bob was
everybody down.
Very, very good. He contained them. He did contain them. So
Bob Brunson's is one of my mediumship guides, and I think interesting that and I don't know if Christine, if you ever knew Bob Brunson, who was a healer and medium and tutor here, but I knew him. He was a godfather to me. I never sat in circle with him. He actually passed to heaven before I think was even a teenager. But Bob appeared throughout my different circles to circle leaders, and not just me, it was sort of by way of confirmation. Jill Hay, who was the last circle leader I'd sat with, had known of him as well, and he had made himself known to her. He's someone that you had seen with me, and oh, Mary, I'm not sure because it's someone I knew. Well, actually, I'm seeing him too. Was that sort of nice confirmation? And I like to think that he does guide me from that sort of side. And Terry was just saying that she went to circles at churches and didn't know anyone. They had all sat together for years, and she felt uncomfortable at first, but of course because they all knew each other. But once she was able to do that and relax, so just because someone has sat together as a circle for a long time doesn't mean that people can't come and go.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's about the right people at the right times in their life and the right intention. I think what you were saying about those three that came into that group is their intentions were almost being telegraphed in some sort of way.
Yes.
And your own spirit defences, your spider tenses, your spirit tentacles are warning you that perhaps this isn't quite right. Danny Stonebolger from California. Hiya, Danny.
Hi, Danny.
Casey and everyone. Nice that we've got some church family from across the pond today. Right, Peacham's Kirsty says, questions. Can spirits pretend to be our loved ones, including on the ghost box, as I regularly use one and often think I'm talking to my husband? Example, some expressions. If it's okay, Peacham's, I'd like to answer this first, but I'm going to get Julie Caswell, both in the chat room, to give her opinion, because she's one of the people I regard as a subject matter expert on the spirit box, but also from Christine and Mary. Now, I want to start with my answer because Jill Hay, who I mentioned earlier on, is working with me right now. She was one of my guides, and Jill used to talk about imposters. Okay, and she used to talk about verifying your communicator. You're not allowed to ask a member of the church congregation or a client a question, but you have to ask lots of questions of your own guide teams and your communicators. So I think that any sort of psychic tool is open to abuse. I do believe in the power of a Ouija board, but a Ouija board is a tool. Everyone around it, the human beings, are the energy required, and they are acting as the mediums. So anyone can claim to be anyone. It's all about the evidence. And for those of you that have ever seen me give mediumship, one of the things my grandfather got me doing, backed up by my dad, and throughout all of the different circle leaders, it's led to me saying, I've now got someone here who's claiming to be a father or a mother or a brother or a sister, your second cousin twice removed. They're telling me that they died of this. They're giving me this name. And I'm asking my communicator the questions within my mind's eye, working in tandem with my guides to get that evidence. And I have this sort of rule which has been installed with me with all of my circle leaders, is they don't get to speak unless they can evidence who they are. And for me, when I've then used things like Ouija boards, I've always said to my guide team, I'm not having any jokers in here today. I'm not having what might be called rescue work. And my godfather, Bob Brunson, used to be involved in rescue work, where you could have strangers claim to be anyone. As a spiritualist medium, my job, I see, is to give evidence of life after life. So I don't channel guides and ascended masters and second cousins twice removed that you've never heard of. If I'm giving a message, I've got to give you the evidence of that personality, the evidence of that communicator first. And that for me is the difference. And it goes back to what you were both saying at the beginning. You've got to ask the right questions in your mind's eye, get the evidence. So Christine, do you want to come in first? Anything you want to say about potential imposters and how to deal with it? And then Mary, I'll get you to come in at the end.
Well, you've just got to be very firm with them, haven't you? That is the only way to really deal with them. It's not an easy thing because some of them can be very persistent, but you can work to it. And I think one of the ones I had to deal with, this man had such a foul mouth, and I was trying to deal with this gentleman on the phone. And he said, I was saying to him, well, if it was me, I would do this, tell him to, whatever. And he said, he's listening to what you're saying. So I said, well, I don't care what he's doing, as long as he takes notice and he goes. But you've got to really be strong with them. You've got to be as strong as they are. And it can be very off-putting when you're dealing with an energy like that, and they do slip in occasionally, But this is what I'm saying was earlier about people that are not trained to run a circle. Because if you're not trained to see who is coming into your circle sitter, you can't protect them. So you've got to know what you're doing, and you've got to be on the ball and watching out for their safety all the time. But not, I have not actually come in contact with it too much, but you do get these instances where they will try to disrupt or cause mischief, and that's what they're doing. But people often get the, I know one day your dad and I went from the greater world, we went to a house where they were having problems, and we did what we would do, but when we came out, we both felt the gentleman had been made redundant, he wasn't working, so there was no money coming in, and it wasn't really an entity that they were dealing with, it was their own problems, but it was manifesting that they were feeling that strange things were going on around them. Can you understand that? And but that settled down, but it was them making the energies, not actually entities coming in. And so you have to be careful with that sort of thing as well. But just if I can go back to a little thing that happened to me before I actually started doing platform work, we were at the Greater World on one of their special days, a Saturday, and they kept saying, somebody was doing a demonstration, and she kept saying, somebody else come up, somebody in the audience must want to come up. And I'm sitting there very quiet, and the girl sitting next to me says, Christine will come up. And I said, no, I won't. Anyway, so somebody else went up, and then she did it again. And this person, I said, oh, all right, I'll go. And you know what? I was glad that this woman was linked in with me, because I kept giving this woman in the audience this and that, and she said no to everything, absolutely everything. And this lady that was taking the course, she said, whispered to me, she said, take no notice. She said, I'm linked with you. And she said, I am seeing, and I know that you're telling her the truth. After the program was over, she came back in and she said, everything you gave me was true. Now, what if I had been that way inclined, it could have thrown me and I wouldn't have gone on, because it was embarrassing for me. No, 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 no. But why go into these places and sit, and somebody is supposed to be giving a message, if you are not going to be honest, and you're going to disrupt it? And I could have really been put right off, but I often found that I was thrown in. I went to Richmond Church one day to support somebody, some other budding mediums. And as I walked in, my friend's mother said, Christine will come up on platform. And I thought, oh, here we go again. But that was another evening where it went well, but I actually work better when I'm thrown in at the deep end. And it's quite amazing, you know, that happens. But yes, I think, you know, they know where you're going, and that you're going to be there to do this, and they will force you to do it, even if you're not really expecting to work. So, oh dear. Alexa, go away. She's telling me it's time to go to bed. It's 10 o'clock.
We've never had that live on SBTV before.
I'm sorry about that. I should have unplugged her.
That's
but
okay,
anyway,
no
there's
good
a couple
answer,
of little...
good answer, Christian.
Just
Thank
a
you.
couple of things, you know, that have happened to me, and that could have really put me right off. But your father kept me on my toes and encouraged me to do all the.
I'm going to bring Mary in to give us her sort of opinion and thoughts as a leader about potential imposters. But there's also there was a couple of follow-up questions which I'll take afterwards. And Julie Caswell has just given a bit of opinion there with the spirit box, saying it is all about the evidence. Personally, when I use the board or spirit box, I work with my spirit guides, and they allow who comes through the box or the board. I'm also aware of the energy of the spirit. I think that's a really good point, isn't it? It goes back to what we said about discipline, having a guide team. I always talk about Bob Brunson being my bouncer on that waiting room to heaven, and only letting people through that are going to work with that love and light. But Mary, what's your sort of thoughts about potential imposters and knowing that you're dealing with someone legitimate?
I've never actually come across any. However, I would say that if you're working and you want to be certain that it's not an imposter, then you need to ask a question that only you and they would know about, and an imposter would not, and do it in that manner. And that would be the only way. But I would not personally ever use a spirit box without having someone like Julie, because Julie's done it for some time and she knows what she's doing. But I wouldn't want to do it solely on my own. I don't think that you should. I think you should have someone else with you and make sure, like Julie says, that you work with your guides.
Yeah.
And not try to do it on a personal basis, just trying to connect with one person, because that would be when you're laying yourself open to some malicious spirit to come and try to be the person that you want.
And I think it's so important, you know. I know we might have a couple of Canadian people watching today, but in general terms, everyone locks their front door, and you only let the people in your house who you want to come in after verifying who they are at the door. And for me, understanding that relationship between this world and the spirit world, and only letting those people come into play that are invited, I think it's really important. So I know that your question was about your husband, and if you believe it's your husband and you're asking questions which you think he knows the answer to, and you're getting evidence of that, then there's absolutely no reason not to believe that. You know, for confirmation so that things aren't just a coincidence. Is another way of doing it. And you know your guides, know your guide team. I've known people that can do all sorts of amazing things like automatic writing, and I remember saying to them, who is your guide? They're like, I don't even know who my guide is. And yet you're channeling for spirit without knowing who the spirit are. And rescue work, I mentioned that very briefly, and I just thought I will talk about it very, very sort of quickly, because it's a slightly different type of mediumship. Bob had been involved with it. And it's something that I've always been fascinated with, and I do participate in experimental seances in the right terms and conditions. In fact, there's some great stuff on SPTV from our Spiritual and Psychic Weekend in October last year. But with rescue work, you're almost sort of saying to spirit world, right, the front door's open, and you know what? The lighthouse lights are on, and in a dark place, I'm showing light to it. Everyone's welcome, and like insects in the darkness coming towards the light. You're sort of opening up to say anyone can come in and start to talk about who they are. And I remember very, very early on, I can't remember where I was sitting with you, Mary or Christine, but I'd had someone in circle that spoke about being a hiker. They'd given me the car registration. They said that their car was left in this car park. They'd fallen and killed themselves. They were dead. They wanted their body to be found so they could, let their mum know. And I had all this information, the name of the pub. I think this is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I went off and researched it. The car registration didn't exist. The pub didn't exist. And I went back and did something different with my guides, only to find out that this person that gave me that information was a bit of a joker and practical joker in their life. And in their life, after that change they went through called death, they waited for people like me to switch on the light, and they thought, I'll have some fun with him. And it wasn't necessarily anything evil or negative, but it was a discipline lesson for me about knowing sort of who I was working with and who I was sort of working for. So there was a question that just came in a minute ago, and then I'll take the one from Richard. There was someone that just asked about circles. They've been doing some mediumship over Zoom and stuff. They've never actually worked on platform. Sort of what's the next step? And I think we've kind of answered that by saying, find your local spiritualist centre or church. find a circle leader or a minister. It was Damien Parks that could say that. Have a look through the SBTV directory, Damien, and find someone that you can connect with. If not, connect with a virtual tutor. Matt and Kirsty Grogan on SBTV. There are other tutors that work on the Spiritual Psychics TV Academy. Get that link in, and then find a sympathetic audience at an open platform at your local spiritualist church. Down in Wimbledon, we're looking to reopen that. We haven't done that in almost 2 years, but often led by people like Phil Shaw and others that form this group of people to help you. You're always going to get a sympathetic group of spiritualists that know how this can work. So yeah, have a go with that, Damien. And Richard, I think was it a question that you just popped? Something come up on the SPTV. Bring that back up for me. But Damien, hopefully that answers your question. As I think we can cover it on right. So now I'm confused. I thought when we passed, all our memories are shared to the collective, as according to the trance session at WSC. So surely all spirit would know all of our secrets. Oh, really good question, Richard. It goes back to that sort of collective consciousness. And if we take something like a Ouija board, it's something I've always asked. If I'm on the board or I'm in the room, then am I subconsciously, or is there a part of my higher self almost giving that away? And certainly the spirits, in a sense, if you imagine that the liquid in this can, we're not allowed to do adverts, we just call it fizzy drink at the moment with a flavour of lemon and lime. The liquid in this, if this represents almost like the personality, when it goes back to that great spirit, it's almost like pouring the liquid back into that pool. So of course there's this idea that energy, that's what we're all made of, and the energy of our personality surviving and having a life of, it's all part of that great collective consciousness. So yes, I think that's true. But for me, the difference as a spiritualist medium is when we're working in the evidential zone, what we're saying is, I want you to group all of that energy as a personality, as the personality of the person you were when you were alive, when you had the experience as a human being in the third dimensional, and I want you to give me evidence of that. And I suppose an imposter, someone pretending to be someone else, they may have access to certain things, but their actual personality would have still been quite unique to that individual. Mary, anything you'd like to sound that? And then Christine?
No, I think I know that the individual would come forward as they were when they were here. And I don't think that the collective would, there would be enough to collect to one individual. If you can imagine there being 1 million, and that's only a small amount to what would be, 1 million thoughts going out at one time, and you couldn't gather all of them to give in one instant. You could only get a portion of it, and to be able to do it in the time needed to be able to pass that on to an individual, unless you were the essence of the spirit that was here, wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, and I suppose you, as a human being, you can compartmentalize.
Yeah.
You don't have to reveal everything to other human beings or indeed the spirit world. Christine, anything you would like to add?
Well, I rather agree with Mary, because if there's that big pool, how can they in that few moments bring in their own personality? It's got to be that, hasn't it? So I think you can trust your guides to give you only that person's personality, and what they are giving you of life happenings, shall we say, has got to be true to them. It can't be part of anybody else. So I don't think you can actually get that wrong. It's got to be that person's personality that you're receiving. I like Mary, I've never experienced that sort of thing, but mine have always been quite clear on what's going on or what has happened in their life, and what they're giving me. So I've never come across it, to be quite honest. So I don't know whether you have, actually.
I mean, it's some good answers, and I took part in some research with King's University, and you know, they were very open-minded, which I think is important. I've always said, you know, your mind works better like a parachute when it's open, to quote Malcolm Robinson. But they were trying to understand whether or not, as a spiritualist medium, if I was giving evidence from the energy of a personality, that, you know, that the soul, or whether or not I was effectively mind reading the other human being. Because if the human being had a memory of a loved one and how they died, the evidence in theory existed in some sort of energy form within their own mind. And was I using my mind to sort of read their mind? But the point that I think the King's Uni sort of research was going to was that for all of this to exist, it would be consistent in every single experiment. And what they found is that every medium was different, every experience was different, every sort of reading was different. And there'll be very clever people in this world, people like Darren Brown, you know, a spiritualist, that are able to put thoughts into people's minds. They are magicians and illusionists to a certain extent. And again, I think from a point of professionalism, also being aware of things like the consumer regulations and Consumer Act in the UK, as a spiritualist medium, you have to present your evidence, and it's for the client or the congregation to understand it. You know, and that's when I say I've got a man claiming to be. It's up for that person to say, yeah, that does sound like my friend. But I'll finish with a quote from a scientist, which Derek Acora used to talk about as a spiritualist, which is to the believer, no proof is necessary, but to the non-believer, perhaps no proof is possible. And it was this idea that the vast majority of people that come into a spiritualist church believe in a life after death. And therefore, they're sat in the audience or the congregation, they are waiting for evidence of a personality or a communicator that they want to come forward. And I've always said that, you know, when we do this remotely and online, it's because of them. It's their intention to communicate with that person. Whereas, of course, in more a scientific experiment, if you take people that don't believe anything, they don't believe necessarily or have any religion, or they don't believe that, it's much harder to say, well, I've got these things coming in that sort of claim to be. So, you know, some interesting things, folks, to think about. We actually are coming towards the end of the show. We've got a couple of minutes left, folks, for you to get your questions in. There is, if the night is early for you, I know it's not for Christine, she's already been sent to bed by Alexa, but the night is early. SBTV have got another show on at 9:30 this evening. Some live bits and pieces, and this channel is celebrating its 3rd birthday tomorrow. So from 8 o'clock tomorrow night, Spiritual Psychics TV has a really interesting, hopefully entertaining and uplifting show for you. Richard, our producer, will be involved in some sort of online Zoom. It'll be an interactive show, folks. So do check out that tomorrow from 8 o'clock night and come back and celebrate the 3rd birthday of this amazing thing that is Spiritual Psychics TV, and you, this amazing community. Richard says that this is the problem with spiritualism: too many conflicting thoughts and opinions with no proof of evidence. Yeah, absolutely, Richard. What an amazing religion. And you know, unlike so many other religions where they have one book or one set of rules, everyone within spiritualism has free will and desire. This church, which is part of Unite Spiritualists, still has its own principles. All the churches regulated by the SNU will have another set of principles. The Greater World Christian Spiritual Association and the Teachings of Zodiac have another set of principles. Somewhere within that is bits of the truth. And I think that the important thing for me is, and when I do this show, I always try and talk about the fact that we're going to tell you the things that we know, that we believe to be part of that truth, and they've come to us as part of that truth. But the fact is, we probably only hold just a piece of the jigsaw, and hope that jigsaw can eventually be put together and create this wonderful big picture. But the fact is, we've all got free will. We're all entitled to our own opinions, and I think as long as you then don't punish other people for having a different opinion to you, it's absolutely fine. So last couple of questions, and then Stace Shaw says, like you very often say, Richard, no one really knows anything until we get there. The only thing I do believe is that the soul does live on. Where and how is open to debate. Yeah, really good point, Stace. And you know, my spiritualist philosophy committee which is chaired by my good friend, I believe, Ralph Steadman. It has people like Jill Hay that sit on it and others. Lots of them don't even agree with each other. They're my guides. They're the people that have assembled to guide me, and they debate amongst themselves in the spirit world about their understanding of what the truth is. So there are still different dimensions and levels of in the spirit world. People are still coming to lead. Phil Shaw says, Christine, you referenced your circle leader, Ivy. Did you?
No. Yes. No. Ivy.
Was it Davis?
Yes, was Davis. Her
Davis.
name went completely.
Yeah.
Yes, dear Ivy and Sid. Yes.
Yeah.
No, she was
Lovely
wonderful.
Davis.
Yes. But Ivy Northridge was a lovely person as well, Phil. She really was. I mean,
Juliet probably gets in the last question. I'm a developing medium. How do you know you connected with your guide? I know this sounds silly. Do you have to trust what you're given? I think you have to develop that trust, don't you?
Yes, you do.
Yes.
Can I just answer that with what my late husband said to me? You have the trust of a child. He said, I wish that I did, because I do. I implicitly trust that they would not lead me wrongly, and that what they give me is truth. And if you have that trust, you can't go wrong.
Really,
I would agree with that.
surrendering yourself to the will of spirit once that trust is right. Once it's, I suppose, been earned, and you do that through your circles, through your training. So once you know that you're working with a guide team, you've got your bouncers and your doorkeepers or whatever you call them, your angels, and that what you're getting is communicators, then trust in spirit. Don't try and interpret.
No, you mustn't do that, must you? You must. You know they're being honest with you, so you've got to trust what they tell you. And I don't think that you can work any other way, you know. But it does come back, and it does take a long time to get their trust. As I said at the beginning, it's not a 5-minute job, sitting in a circle and training. It can take some people years.
Yeah.
Some people
In
are
circle,
quicker than others.
Prove who the guide team are. Prove who your communicators are. Develop that relationship of trust before you start working with clients.
Exactly.
Once you start working with clients in congregation, the relationship of trust exists. Surrender yourself to messages.
You're away, and they won't guide you wrong. They won't. I'm in agreement with Mary there, you know, and it is like a childlike trust.
Yeah, really nice way of putting it.
Yeah, it was a lovely way of putting it. I hadn't thought of that one myself, but that's lovely, Mary.
I hope that you never have reason to destroy that relationship of trust, because it's such a precious thing.
Definitely.
It is.
A nice note to finish on. I think the time's gone really quickly. Thank you, Christine, for joining us from Spain and bringing your daughter and your granddaughter online too. Mary, it's been lovely to share the platform at Wimbledon with you again. And folks at home, thank you so much for being on the show tonight, for joining us. Remember to give us a thumbs up and a like, share this stream. And of course, the night is young. Enjoy your Friday nights and stay on with SPT. I've got some, I think it's astrology and mediumship from 9:30. So I'll give you some time now to go and get a drink or have a wee and do whatever you need to do. I suppose you can take SPTV with you to the toilet these days on a mobile device. But folks, it's been wonderful to be with you tonight. Again, Christine, thank you so much for joining us. Mary, absolutely lovely being on here with you tonight.
Thank you for having us.
And Richard, our producer, thank you for putting this all together. Folks of Facebook, Hyperspace and YouTube, good night and God bless. Thank you.
And God bless. Good night, Richard. Nice to have met you.
Spiritual Psychics TV is hosting the first annual recognition of achievements, acknowledging those who dedicate their lives to a spiritual act of kindness. Spiritual Psychics TV, bringing spiritual people together.